Every heart holds hidden pearls. Together, let us discover them in the light of the beautiful names of Allah. Welcome to the Hidden Pearls podcast with Amany Shalaby. Welcome back, friends and listeners, to a new episode of the Hidden Pearls. Amany, when we talk about the divine name, Al-Khāfiḍ, the humbler or the Abaser, the first thing that comes to mind for many of us is a decline in external status or a setback in our worldly affairs, because the verb khafada in Arabic means to lower, to abase, to reduce, to minimize. So, when we hear the name Al-Khāfiḍ, what comes to our minds are questions like, why would Allah reduce our rizq, our provision, or lower our status by making us lose a job, or make us feel inferior than others because they are more rich or powerful? Is divine abasement really confined to these outer appearances? Or is there a deeper dimension that touches our very souls? How can we see al-husn, that is beauty, in the name of Allah, Al-Khāfiḍ?
Allah Al-Khāfiḍ does not mean that He's the one who lowers someone in rank or status in order to abase their dignity or respect, or to humiliate, degrade, or demean them. In truth, the deepest and most subtle meaning of the divine name Al-Khāfiḍ resides in that hidden sanctuary between a person and their heart. Al-Khāfiḍ descends with his mercy to the heart to lighten the burdens of the soul. He calms or reduces or lowers the panic degree settled deep within us. He cools the fever of anger. He reduces our anger. He quietens the noise of greed. He softens the pride of the ego and tempers the desires that threaten to overwhelm our hearts and drain our spirits until our original inner peace returns. When Allah reduces our outer provisions, whether it is our material rizq, our social reach, or external recognition, He is often quietly expanding our inner spiritual landscape. The lowering of worldly fame, for example, or abundance, is rarely a loss. It is a divine sanctuary designed to protect us from the subtle traps of arrogance and draw us closer to the loved ones right in front of us, and gently realign our priorities with what truly matters. So whenever Allah reduces something in our lives, His subtraction is grounded in infinite wisdom. He's simply removing the distractions that hindered our true growth, making space for us to cultivate deeper balance, inner strength, patience, authentic knowledge, and spiritual wisdom.
That is such a beautiful understanding. But how does a person experience this inner lowering in everyday life amidst all the stress?
So often we live in a state of false height within ourselves, an ignited anger, escalating anxiety about the future, or an intense attachment to worldly possessions. This internal noise is precisely what weighs down the soul and robs it of peace. And here lies the subtle grace of the name Al-Khāfiḍ, the one who reduces, the one who lowers, the one who abases. When you call upon him by this name, or when his gentle breeze descends upon you, he lowers the intensity of these overwhelming emotions. He softens the edge of anger, so you may replace it with gentleness. He lowers the dominance of the ego, so you can realize your true place before the grandeur of the Creator. It is a lowering of greed and anxiety, so the soul can rest assured that all matters flow accordingly to Allah's knowledge and mercy. So, what Allah really is reducing or abasing is the false worries or the false self, which allows us to return to our original inner peace.
That brings a thought to mind. Sometimes a person feels that God has reduced their standing or compressed their great achievements and fruits into nothing, as if they have returned to square one. How should we understand this lowering or reduction?
That is a profound and beautiful point. Lowering also carries the meaning of reduction and compression, but it is a reduction followed by rebirth, resurrection. For example, when Allah reduces the size of a fully ripened fruit and compresses its vitality and energy back into a small seed to be buried in the dark soil, he is not destroying it. Rather, he is encapsulating its strength and wisdom to protect them. Condensing the fruit back into a seed is an act of new creation, of gathering and collecting all that is needed for the new resurrection or creation. Allah gives the seed the chance to emerge anew with a grander, stronger life. The seed is not the end of the tree. It is the sanctuary of its first journey and the secret to its next expansion. So, likewise, when Allah reduces your circumstances or narrows your movement in a certain way, He is reforming you from within, so you may emerge with wider horizons and more fruitful branches. In other words, this is a chance to encapsulate your energy, your knowledge, your wisdom, to turn more inwardly in order to find your true potential and be able to grow even further.
How does this understanding reflect on how we treat ourselves and those around us? How do we serve the name Al-Khāfiḍ?
The servants of Al-Khāfiḍ are those who stand before Allah stripped of all pretense. They lower the intensity of their pride and humble themselves like a young child, crying out and seeking refuge in her mother's arms, knowing that her only true strength lies in her helplessness and total surrender to those arms. The servants of Al-Khāfiḍ, when faced with an angry heart, for example, they try to reduce the fuel of the anger. They don't meet anger with more escalating anger, but they lower the intensity of the moment with gentleness, wisdom. They may withdraw from the situation, and so forth. They notice also if someone have an anxiety or sad, so they try to reduce their anxiety or sadness. They listen the fear and ground the hearts in the remembrance of Allah and extend assurance to people. They reduce competitions and encourage cooperation and working together, brainstorming, and so forth.
Today we live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with relentless images, notifications, and sensory stimulants. We are trying to keep up with the noise, so many of us feel overwhelmed, anxious, and spiritually drained. How does the wisdom of Al-Khāfiḍ help us and protect our peace?
This sensory overload is one of the greatest challenges of our modern life. When we are constantly consuming endless streams of content, our minds never get a chance to rest and our spirits become cluttered with noise, envy, and distraction. This is where the divine name Al-Khāfiḍ, the one who reduces or lowers, offers us a profound sanctuary. Lowering in this context means lowering our intake, intentionally dialing down the noise of the outside world so we can hear the quiet truth within us. Out of His mercy, Allah sometimes invites us into moments of obscurity or stillness to shield us from the fatigue of constant visibility and sensory exhaustion. The goal isn't to cut ourselves off from the world entirely, but to become deeply selective and to reduce our consumption and gather only what is wholesome and meaningful. For example, instead of mindlessly scrolling through hundreds of random posts every day, we can lower our screen time and choose to follow only those who feed our souls, teach us wisdom, or inspire genuine goodness. When we encounter content that stirs up comparison or anxiety, we gracefully step back, mute, or unfollow. We don't need to digest every piece of information thrown at us. And finally, we should dedicate sacred quiet hours during the day, free from screens, where we disconnect from the digital crowd world and reconnect with Allah, with nature, with ourselves, our hearts, and our loved ones. When you intentionally lower the volume of the word stimulants, you aren't missing out. You are preserving the clarity within your own heart so you can receive true light instead of endless noise.
Amany, what message would you like to close with? What is the hidden pearl that our listeners can take with them this week?
This week, your practice is to intentionally try to serve the spirit of Al-Khāfiḍ through one act of voluntary dissent or reducing something that need to be reduced, choosing love and connection over the elevation of the ego. So the next time a conversation or disagreement begins to heat up, consciously lower your tone, your volume, and your urge to win the point. Lowering your emotional defense creates a safe space for the other person to feel safe and heard and it gives a chance to de-escalate the anger and the intensity of the situation. So you could both connect and understand one another. In a group meeting, family dinner, or social setting, hold back from sharing your own story or talking about your own achievement right away. Instead, lower your voice and ask a thoughtful question that invites someone else to speak and be celebrated. The intention here is that you are stepping into the background so that someone else feels seen, valued, and elevated. But if this is your pattern of behavior all the time, you don't need to step back, you need to step up. But if you are in the habit of always jumping in the conversation to talk about yourself and your achievement, then you need to lower your voice or your chances to talk so that you can allow someone else to share their stories and be in the spotlight. The third practical action you could do is to do something deeply meaningful, generous, or creative this week and tell no one about it. No social media post, no mention to friends. Keep it entirely hidden. The intention here is the practice being content with being unseen, trusting that depth and wisdom grow strongest in the quiet depths, just as the seed beneath the soil, hiding and gathering all the energy, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, and all the secrets, resources that Allah give you within so that you can achieve your highest potential.
May today's pearl continue to shine in your heart throughout the week. Until we meet again, may Allah guide your steps and fill your heart with His light.